My friends, too often we look at the great figures of history, the champions of sport, the leaders of business, the innovators of technology, and we imagine they are cut from a different cloth. We tell ourselves they must have been born special, born lucky, born destined for greatness. But the truth is far more empowering. They are just normal people. They were not superhuman. They didn't always have all the answers. They faced doubt, fear, rejection, and failure just like you and me. What set them apart was not what they were born with, but what they chose to do with what they had. And that's why their story matters, because if they could rise, so can you. If they could transform their struggles into strength, so can you. If they could look at an ordinary life and decide to make it extraordinary, then what excuse do we have not to do the same? They are just normal people, but they refuse to settle for normal results. And you too have that same power. When you look at the stories of those we admire, it's easy to forget where they came from. We see the awards, the spotlight, the recognition, the success, but behind all of that, there was once a child, a student, a worker, an ordinary individual who looked no different from you or me. They weren't born into greatness. They weren't handed a map to success. They had to stumble through the same uncertainty, the same fear, the same setbacks that every one of us faces. Their greatness did not appear overnight. It was forged slowly, day by day, in the furnace of ordinary beginnings. Think about it. Every world changer started somewhere small. Before the innovation, there was an idea scribbled on paper. Before the victory, there was practice in the shadows where no one was watching. Before the applause, there was silence, filled only with the sound of doubt, whispering in their own minds. They questioned themselves just like you do. They wondered if they were enough, if anyone would ever believe in them, if what they were doing even mattered, and yet they pressed forward. They didn't wait for someone to crown them worthy. They didn't wait for perfect circumstances. They moved with what they had, even when it wasn't much. That's the power of beginnings. They remind us that every extraordinary story is rooted in something ordinary. The difference lies not in where someone starts, but in how they decide to use their start. Some people look at humble beginnings and see limitations. Others look at those same beginnings and see the foundation of greatness. The truth is, greatness doesn't skip over anyone. It grows in those who are willing to nurture it, no matter how small the seed may seem at first. And when you really understand that, you stop idolizing others as if they are untouchable. You realize that the gap between you and those you admire is not a matter of being born special. It's a matter of choices, discipline, and persistence. They are just normal people who began in ordinary places, just like you. What made them different was not their starting line, but their refusal to stop running. Every life is shaped not simply by circumstances, but by choices, and this is where the truth becomes clear. It is not what people are born with that determines who they become, but what they choose to do in the moments that test them. All of us encounter crossroads, moments when fear whispers in one ear and courage calls in the other. Moments when quitting looks easier than continuing, when silence feels safer than speaking up, when comfort seems more appealing than growth. What separates those we admire from those who remain stuck is not their intelligence, not their resources, not their luck. It is their decision to step forward when the easier choice was to step back. Think about the power of one choice: choosing to believe when doubt feels overwhelming, choosing to act when it would be easier to wait, choosing to rise when every part of you wants to stay down. Every great story we celebrate is built on a foundation of these kinds of decisions. And the remarkable thing is that those choices were made by people who were just as uncertain, just as human, just as flawed as we are. They weren't chosen by destiny to succeed. They chose themselves. They said, "I will not let this moment define me in weakness. I will define it in strength." Life doesn't give us control over where we start, but it always gives us control over how we respond. That is where destiny is shaped. The world is full of ordinary people who faced extraordinary circumstances and made the brave choice to keep moving forward. And with each decision, they carved out a path toward the life they dreamed of. Their greatness didn't arrive all at once. It was built piece by piece through the choices they made in the moments when no one else was watching. The beauty of this truth is that it puts the power back in your hands. You don't need to wait for someone to open a door for you. You don't need to hope that luck will find you. You don't need to be born into privilege to change your life. What you need is the courage to choose differently, to choose action over hesitation, to choose faith over fear, to choose persistence over surrender. These choices, repeated over and over, create the momentum that turns an ordinary person into someone extraordinary. Failure is one of those words that people fear more than almost anything else. We grow up thinking that failure means the end, that it is proof we're not good enough, that it disqualifies us from ever reaching success. But the truth is far different. Failure is not the end of the story. It is a vital chapter in every story of greatness. Look closely at anyone you admire, anyone who has accomplished something that seems larger than life, and you will discover not a perfect record, but a long list of mistakes, setbacks, rejections, and disappointments. They stumbled, they fell. Sometimes they even doubted if they could stand again. But every time they chose to rise. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who remain stuck is not that one group never fails and the other does. The difference is in how they respond when failure comes. Some allow failure to define them, to tell them they are finished, to convince them to settle. But those who rise, those who inspire us, they see failure for what it really is: a teacher, a guide, a stepping stone. They understand that failure is evidence not of weakness, but of effort. It shows that they dared to try, dared to reach, dared to dream. And so instead of running from it, they lean into it, they learn from it, they use it to grow stronger. Think about this. Every failure contains a lesson that success could never teach. When you win, you celebrate, but when you fail, you reflect, you adapt, you gain wisdom. It is in those quiet, painful moments after failure that character is forged. It is in those moments that resilience is born. Normal people who went on to achieve extraordinary things understood this. They didn't hide from their failures, they built on them. They let each fall become the ground from which they rose higher. And here's the part that matters most: failure is universal. It comes to everyone. It does not discriminate, but greatness does not come to everyone. It comes only to those who refuse to let failure have the final word. That refusal, that stubbornness to rise again and again, is what transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary legacies. So when failure comes, remember that you are not alone and you are not finished. What defines you is not the fall, but the rise that follows. Discipline is the quiet force that builds difference between a life that drifts and a life that leads. It is not glamorous. It doesn't always feel inspiring. In fact, most of the time, discipline is about showing up when you don't feel like it, doing the work when no one is watching, and making small, consistent choices that compound over time. The people we look up to, the ones we think of as extraordinary, were not carried to success on waves of constant motivation. They built their lives on the backbone of discipline. They understood that talent may open a door, but discipline keeps you in the room. Think about the athlete who trains before the sun comes up, the writer who pushes through the late nights, with nothing but a lamp and determination. The entrepreneur who continues building after a string of failures, none of them relied solely on inspiration. They relied on habits. They built routines that turned effort into progress, progress into momentum, and momentum into results. Discipline is not about a single grand gesture. It is about the small daily acts of commitment that, over time, separate those who dream from those who achieve. It's important to understand that discipline does not mean perfection. It does not mean you never stumble or never doubt yourself. What it means is that you get back on track again and again until consistency becomes a part of who you are. And once it becomes who you are, it carries you through the hard seasons, the dry seasons, the moments when you feel like giving up. Motivation can spark the fire, but discipline keeps it burning long after the spark has faded. Normal people who accomplished extraordinary things didn't always feel like moving forward, but they did it anyway. They learned to master themselves, to govern their impulses, to choose long-term growth over short-term comfort. And in doing so, they discovered a truth that too many overlook: discipline, practice daily, transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It builds character, sharpens focus, and creates a strength that even failure cannot shake. Belief is the unseen force that fuels every step toward greatness. It is invisible, intangible, and yet it is the single most powerful ingredient in every extraordinary achievement. Before anyone else believes in you, before the applause, before the recognition, before the results ever show up, there has to be an unshakable belief within yourself that says, I can, I will, I must. And this belief does not mean ignoring fear or pretending doubt doesn't exist. It means choosing every single day to believe that you are capable of becoming more than your circumstances, more than your failures, more than the voices that tell you it cannot be done. The world is filled with people who had every reason to quit, every reason to give in, every reason to believe the odds were stacked against them. And yet they held on to belief. That belief became the foundation for their persistence, the fuel for their action, the light in the darkness when everything else seemed uncertain. Belief is what carried them through the nights when nothing seemed to be working. Belief is what gave them the strength to take another step when the last one almost broke them. Without belief, discipline feels empty. Without belief, failure feels final. But with belief, every setback becomes temporary, every obstacle becomes conquerable, every dream becomes possible. Belief is contagious too. When you believe in yourself, others begin to see that strength in you. People are drawn to conviction, to the certainty that you are moving with purpose. Leaders are not followed simply because they have all the answers. They are followed because they carry belief so strongly that others can't help but believe too. And the truth is, belief is not reserved for a chosen few. It is a decision, a choice to trust in the power within you, even when there is no evidence yet. Normal people who became extraordinary were not handed a guarantee of success. They did not have a secret map that told them everything would work out. What they had was belief, belief that their life could mean more, belief that their efforts mattered, belief that if they kept going, something better was waiting on the other side. That belief, steady and unwavering, turned ordinary lives into legacies that inspire generations. ChatGPT said, "The most powerful truth of all is this: you are no different." The same potential that burned in the hearts of those we admire is alive within you right now. It may not look the same. It may not feel the same. You might not see it when you look in the mirror, especially when you're weighed down by struggle or doubt. But it's there. The difference between those who rise and those who remain is not that one group was born with something special, while the other was not. The difference is that Some chose to awaken what was already inside them, while others never gave themselves permission to try. You've got to stop telling yourself the story that greatness belongs only to other people. The inventors, the leaders, the champions, they were not handed a different kind of blood, a stronger kind of will, or a brighter kind of mind. They were not born destined to tower over the rest. They started out just as ordinary as you. What made them extraordinary was the decision to step into the fullness of their potential. That same choice stands before you now. Every day, you carry the same opportunity to believe, to act, to persist, to grow. And with every choice you make, you are shaping the person you are becoming. You are not waiting to become worthy of greatness. You already are. The seed has always been planted. The question is whether you will water it, whether you will give it sunlight, whether you will refuse to abandon it when storms come. That is the only difference between the people we admire and the people who fade into silence. One group decided to believe in the power within them, and the other let it go to waste. So don't let the thought that they are different hold you back. Don't let the illusion of separation blind you to your own strength. You have what it takes. You've always had what it takes. The same courage, the same resilience, the same fire that turned ordinary people into extraordinary legacies is alive in you right now. And the moment you decide to act on it, truly act, is the moment your life will begin to change forever. And so, when we look at the men and women who changed the course of history, who broke through barriers, who lifted others with their example, remember this: they were not giants born into the world. They were not superheroes sent from the heavens. They were just normal people. People who dared to choose courage over fear. People who turned failure into a lesson instead of a sentence. People who showed up with discipline when no one was watching. People who believed in something greater than their circumstances. And if they could do it, why not you? If they could rise from ordinary beginnings and write extraordinary stories, why can't your story be next? The same fire that lived in them lives in you. The same power that carried them forward is waiting to carry you. The question is not whether you have what it takes, you do. The question is whether you will decide here and now to step into it. So don't let today pass like any other day. Don't walk away from this moment thinking greatness belongs to someone else. Greatness belongs to those who claim it. Greatness belongs to those who dare to act. Greatness belongs to those who, in the face of doubt, in the face of fear, in the face of failure, choose to rise anyway. Because in the end, the difference between those who inspire and those who watch from the sidelines is not destiny, it is decision. And today, that decision belongs to you.